don't even know where to start with you. I mean, do you even know who you're talking to? Yo, what's up? Do you have any idea who I am? Basically, kind of a big deal. Oh man, that's beautiful. You listening? Okay. Grass grows, birds fly, sun shines, and brother, I hurt people. Boink! I'm a force of nature. Bonk! If you were from where I was from, you'd be fucking dead. Woo!
Scout! Scout is a slippery offensive fighter who excels at working around his opponent's defenses and hitting them for big damage with his access to fantastic combo routes and decent burst damage. With a wide variety of mobility and gap closing options on his side, Scout's ability to force up close fights and open up his opponents can be among some of the best in the game. And while his close range pressure isn't as strong as some other rushdown characters, his ability to safely disengage and pick fights more than makes up for it, as your opponent can't hit what isn't there. On top of that, Scout's access to several different weapons allows him to either start engagements or check buttons from a range that most other rushdown characters don't have access to, all while allowing him to annoy his foes from mid-range and play into his class's strengths from TF2. While his speed might be a bit too much for some characters to take, those that manage to catch Scout making a mistake will quickly discover a character with some notable weaknesses, with chief amongst them being Scout's lack of defensive tools. While being able to back off from a potential losing battle is a great thing for a fighting game character to have, this only accounts for either bouts on the neutral or when you have the advantage, not when you're already on the back foot. And with a lack of strong anti-pressure tools and a low weight value, you're going to need to do everything in your power to not end up in this position. Scout is a character who will live and die by his speed, and failing to use that speed effectively will lead to many a lost stock. On top of this, it's important that you use your weapons to keep your foes on their toes, all while being a general annoyance that will slowly but surely pull foes out of position as they desperately try to land a hit on you. Just be sure you keep your cool and know how to get out once things hit the fan, as hasty decisions can lead to hasty results. Scout stands as a fairly large humanoid character, with his height being just a bit smaller than characters like Martha and Byleth. A fast-running scrapper born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts, the Scout, or Jeremy Not Albertson as he's called, is a class who is best known for his ability to start and finish aggressive pushes before his enemies even have a chance to react, all while using his superior mobility to dance around slower opponents and dodge incoming projectiles. With his trusty scattergun in hand, the Scout sports some of the highest burst damage in the game, and while he might not be able to mow down hordes of players like Heavy or instantly take out any opponent like Spy, his primary weapon is more than strong enough to quickly two-tap most classes in the game, and that includes the enemy team's most valuable target, the Medic. As a result, Scout has developed a reputation for being something of a medic killer in competitive circles, as his speed allows him to move in and pick off a medic with far less risk than that of his main flanking competitor, Spy. However, while Scout is normally seen as the master of his domain, he's far from the only class that can gain access to high mobility. In particular, it's arguable that both Soldier and Demo have access to mobility options that allow them to outpace Scout in the offensive, and while that's technically true, there's something that Scout has that neither of said other classes have access to, something that keeps him the king of mobility and a constant threat in TF2. Commitment. You see, while Soldier and Demo can both move around the map at considerably higher speeds than Scout with the right tools, they must commit to their options in order to make the most of them. Scout, on the other hand, doesn't need to commit to his push, as he can pick and choose when to make use of his most important aspect as a character. This aspect is known as picking your fights, and is arguably one of the strongest traits that any character can have in a competitive game. And this ability to carefully choose when to attack and when to get out of dodge is how Scout is considered to be one of the game's strongest classes. As for his Smash Brothers iteration, Scout will be carrying over a majority of his offensive strengths and weaknesses, with his ability to swap between hit and run tactics and comboing his foes being one of his main aspects as a character. On top of that, Scout's flanking skills will be represented through his ability to set up frame traps and condition his foes into either pushing themselves out of position or blocking, with both options helping Scout deal with foes who aren't keen on approaching themselves. As for how he'll fight, Scout will mainly be making use of two different weapons, with these being his ever-iconic scattergun and his trusty bat to bash and bonk his opponents when on the approach, all while mixing in a variety of physical attacks, such as punches and kicks, to play into his status as a scrapper. But more importantly, Scout will be bringing along his greatest weapon to Smash as well, a weapon that almost no other character has access to, and is sadly lacking from Smash as a whole: his cocky quips.
Yo, did you even see me hitting you? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hit you. No, wait, yeah, I did. Oh, hey! You suck!
That's right. Scout is one of the first characters in Smash to passively tear down his foes with not only his weapons, but with his words. And he'll undermine his foes in combat with a plethora of built-in taunts, including but not limited to taunting while performing a perfect shield, launching foes at higher percents, and while performing certain attacks, like smash attacks and throws. Scout is a character who would just feel empty without his quick wit and boisterous personality, and he's an instance where showing it off through his attacks just would not be enough. As a result, Scout is a character who's now in a league of his own in terms of expressiveness. And while this is an aspect of character design that I hope gets improved going forward, Scout will carry this concept on his back in a way that only he can. In terms of mobility options, Scout will represent his advanced mobility by sporting 3 jumps, all while having access to both a wall jump and a crawl. As he is the 4th TF2 mercenary that I've decided to cover, it should come as no surprise that Scout's character mechanic is going to follow a lot of the same design philosophies as the mercs that came before him, all while avoiding the pitfall that is random critical damage at any given time, as I feel that, while said mechanic might work for Team Fortress 2, it doesn't inherently fit into a fighting game like Smash. While that's the case, however, Scout is being taken in a different direction, namely thanks to the fact that his traits don't really stand out in a game like Smash. In comparison, Heavy is a burly tank who sports both the highest health pool and some of the strongest sustained damage in the game, all while having the ability to keep himself in the fight far longer than any other class thanks to his sandwich. Soldier is a jack of all trades who can play a variety of roles and can achieve some of the greatest mobility in the game with his rocket jumping techniques. And Spy is a devious game changer who's capable of instantly picking off any class at the right timing and positioning thanks to the strength of his backstab. Scout, on the other hand, has mostly passive traits, as he's the fastest of the mercenaries and the only one with access to a double jump. These traits, when compared to his contemporaries, are quite impressive in a game like TF2, but in a game like Smash, it doesn't do nearly enough. And while I did decide to give him a 3rd jump to reference the passive effect of the atomizer, I also don't think that's enough to make the Scout feel like, well, the Scout. As a result, Scout's mechanic is instead being designed to accentuate his role as a squirrely damage dealer who can take out targets quickly and shift the pace of a fight with the right timing, with this allowing him to buff his damage at the risk of making himself easier to launch. Scout's already a character who is built around high risk, high reward gameplay, thanks in part to his low health pool and his damage being at its highest when he's close to his foes, and this mechanic is definitely going to bring these strengths to the forefront. Criticola. Introduced into the game on April 28th, 2010, the Criticola is a secondary item that the Scout can equip in the place of his pistol, and once consumed, the Scout would be granted guaranteed mini-crits for a set period of time, greatly increasing his damage output at the cost of marking himself for death, which makes all damage against him become mini-crits as well. While this item has been heavily tweaked over the years, and even sports an achievement around killing the Scout using it, it has remained a fairly strong item if his player has good game sense and doesn't mindlessly throw themselves at the other team. As here in Smash, this item will carry over both its strengths and weaknesses in the form of an install mechanic. With the use of his down special, Scout will pull out a Criticola and take a swig from it, all before performing a cancelable taunt as he tosses the can away.
You morons are about to get a real beating.
With the Criticola activated, Scout's damage will be buffed for a total of 6 seconds, with his damage scaling going up to 1.35 times its normal value, matching the main crit multiplier of Team Fortress 2. While this will only affect damage output, as all of Scout's attacks will retain their base level of knockback, this install will allow Scout to push opponents into their ideal kill range at a pace that far exceeds what he's normally capable of. But that level of strength doesn't come without some serious risks, as on top of the damage multiplier, downing the Criticola will cut Scout's weight down by a hefty 15 units, knocking his 83 weight value down to a measly 68 and tying him with Jigglypuff for the record of second lightest character in the game. This increase in vulnerability will make it far more risky for Scout to get in and stay close to his foes, as one wrong move could spell his end past the mid% range. So maybe it might be best to stick with stock and rely on your base tools in some matchups. Of course, an on-demand 1.35 times damage multiplier is a fairly strong trait for a character to have, so on top of the aforementioned weight reduction, this mechanic is also balanced out by a charge system that will force the Criticola into a cooldown state once the boost comes to an end. This system will be tracked by a meter situated next to Scout's percent bar, and once activated, this meter will drain to 0 over the 6-second duration and gray out once the boost concludes. This bar will then take 4 seconds to fully refill, and once it's ready to go, the Criticola can next to the meter will light up, and a resupply sound will play. These have been the basics of Scout as a character. A high-risk, high-reward speedster who's capable of using his mobility to safely move in and out of his maximum damage range and smoke an opponent's stock before they even realize they've been pushed into kill range. While some beginners might have a bit of trouble mitigating his downsides and staying alive, a Master Scout player has the potential to be one of the scariest things in Smash, thanks in part to the character's versatility. Now that you've got the basics of Scout down, it's now time to get out on the diamond and start discussing Scout's normals, as his preference for baseball will be playing a heavy role in his attack design. Scout's normals will mainly be comprised of attacks from his main melee weapon from TF2. A weapon that, while it might not deal as much damage as the other Mercs options, more than makes up for its shortcomings with its swing speed and rapid sound effects. The aluminum baseball bat. On top of this, Scout will also be making use of various kick attacks to trip up his foes and deal quick damage, as he's bound to have some power in them, considering he can run so fast.
Come on, Bat. Let's go introduce you to some skulls.
Scout's neutral combo is Boston Beatdown Combo, a simple 3-hit melee combo that will have Scout attack in front of himself with a pair of quick straight jabs, all before ending the combo with a wide-hitting roundhouse kick. In terms of design, this simple combo's main use comes from the speed of the first strike, allowing Scout to effectively pressure foes and shield, or catch mistakes out of his dash thanks to his high traction. On top of that, this combo's low base knockback growth can allow Scout to potentially force tech chases at low to mid percents, but thanks to its low overall range, it's not a move that Scout should be using unless he's already closed the distance. Also, as an added bonus, Scout will perform a small taunt after the final hit of the combo, with this playing into his personality and mocking the kung fu nature of the attack. Scout's forward tilt is Outfield Bash, a quick yet simple pair of attacks that will start with Scout performing a horizontal swing with his trusty bat, all before following up the swing with a straight thrust to launch the day's foe away. These attacks count as a target combo, as the player will need to input the attack twice in order to perform the full combo, and as you might expect, this move can not only cancel into itself, but can also be cancelled in some of Scout's other attacks if the combo is cancelled after the first strike. As a result, this pair of attacks works as both a combo starter and one of Scout's best spacing options, and if mixed with the effects of Criticola, it can deal some serious damage. Just be sure you mind your spacing, however, as while the bat does count as a disjoint, its range isn't on par with the majority of the other ranged weapons in Smash. Scout's up tilt is Bleacher Swing, another quick yet simple attack that will have Scout perform an overhead swing with his bat, with Scout putting his full body into it as he starts low to the ground, then ends on his tippy toes. With great speed and decent range, this is one of Scout's best combo starters and one of his safest anti-air options, as the bat's disjoint is just long enough to safely pressure platforms or catch poorly spaced options from his foes, and at very low percents, it can potentially even combo into itself against some of the game's huskier fighters. Despite this, however, the disjoint on this move is notably smaller than the ones on this forward tilt, and as a result, it's possible that this move might lose to aerials that sport larger disjoints, so be sure you use this move's speed to get the first hit in. Scout's down tilt is Streak Kickers, a fast multi-hit attack that will have Scout throw his lower body forward, all before attacking with a pair of quick kicks to launch foes away. This attack sports the quickest startup speed of Scout's grounded tilts, allowing him to put pressure on his foes while lowering his profile, making him harder to hit, and in turn, making this move all the safer to throw out on the neutral. But in return, this speed and low profile is balanced out by a shorter range and lack of a disjoint, making it much easier for foes to stuff this attack if it's poorly spaced. Thankfully, this move's strengths more than outweigh its risks, as Scout's player can use his attack to stuff slower buttons and start combos from low to mid percents, and that's not even counting the potential scattergun follow-ups. Also, while the attack hits twice, it all counts as one move, and should your opponent get hit by the first kick, they're guaranteed to be launched by the second one. Scout's dash attack is Stealing Home, another simple attack that will have Scout perform a sliding dash along the ground, with his pose and attack style being not unlike a baseball player attempting to make it safely to base. This move both comes out quick and sports a long-lasting hitbox, allowing Scout to catch neutral mistakes and push foes out of position, and much like his down tilt, this move will lower Scout's hurtbox, making him harder to challenge from above and allowing him to potentially pass underneath incoming mids. Overall, this attack can be used to set up offstage scrambles or force foes back into the neutral, but it should be noted that this move is very unsafe on block, so if your opponent can see it coming, expect to be sent back to the dugout with a few extra lumps. For his get-up attacks, Scout will attack around himself with either swings from his bat or by performing a breakdance kick, all while performing a straight thrust with his bat for his ledge attack. For his smash attacks, Scout will be making use of a new weapon that's designed to blow away the competition and help the Scout reach new heights he never could without it. And if your foes are caught on the receiving end of it, they'd better pack a lunch, because they're going for a ride. The Force of Nature. Introduced into the game during the Scout update, the Force of Nature, or Fan as it's commonly referred to by fans, is fairly unique as far as Scout primaries go, as instead of focusing on sustained damage across 6 shots per clip, the Fan puts everything into a pair of shots that, while they deal high damage, also send everything still alive soaring with an incredible amount of knockback, and that includes the Scout himself, as players are capable of shooting below them when in midair in order to gain some extra hang time. It's iconic, it's powerful, and its 1-2 punch attack strategy make it perfectly suited for smash attacks. But first, let's talk about one attack that just has to be a part of Scout's moveset. Scout's forward smash is Grand Slam Smasher, a powerful attack that will have Scout take the iconic batter stance often seen in baseball, and after taking a moment to wind up, he'll unleash a powerful bat swing and crush anything in his path, all while leaving a trail of fire in its wake to show the speed of the swing. In Team Fortress 2, this animation was originally a taunt that the Scout could perform with one of his 2 unlockable melee weapons, and should it connect, it would result in an instant kill. While its power has been toned down here in Smash, the animation's quality and expressiveness have been upped dramatically, with this having Scout put his everything into this one swing, and as a result, it's not surprising that it's one of his most powerful attacks. While that's the case, however, the fact that Scout puts his entire body into this attack makes it fairly slow on the recovery, so if you end up swinging a bit too wide, you're almost guaranteed to be taking a couple of strikes. Scout's up smash is Scatter Rocket, a versatile yet powerful attack that will have Scout perform a spinning kick to pull in any nearby opponent unlucky enough to be nearby, and in a flash, he'll use the Force of Nature to rocket himself off the ground and up into the air with a high flying kick, launching the caught foes up into the air with heavy force. This attack is a creative spin on the same smash attack performed by Wolf, with Scout's version sporting both more damage and vertical range thanks to both his size and the power behind the fan, and should an opponent be caught by the initial attack, they'll be unable to escape the launching blow. In terms of design, this attack is one of Scout's best anti-air options, and a fantastic way to close out a grounded combo at lower percents. And if paired with the Criticola, this attack goes from a solid option all around to one of his most dangerous tools at low to mid percents, as if the attack connects, they won't be at low to mid percents for very long. Just make sure you mind your positioning, as the airtime Scout gains during this move will leave him in a recovery state for quite a while, much like his forward smash. Finally, Scout's down smash is Concussive Flash, yet another versatile yet powerful attack that will have Scout make use of his Force of Nature, with this having him unleash a blast from the weapon in front of him before quickly spinning around and firing behind him to not only launch foes away, but help push himself back onto his feet and get his balance back. Compared to his other smash attack options, this move sports the lowest damage output, but in turn, makes up for it by not only being the fastest of Scout's options, but also sports the highest raw knockback growth, allowing Scout to close out stocks at decent percents against the majority of the cast if he can catch them close to the ledge. This also ends up mixing nicely with the effects of Criticola, especially when the low-angled hitboxes of each shot have the potential to snipe foes at the ledge and turn back tech choices into your opponent's worst nightmare. But if your opponent can see it coming, you might just be the one taking a one-way trip to the blast zone, especially if they're sporting a counter. Since he's the only character in Team Fortress 2 to sport a double jump, it should come as no surprise that Scout as a class is just as strong in the air as he is on the ground, with his extra mobility giving him a level of aerial control that no other character has access to. On top of that, Scout's ability to instantly change his direction in the air allows him to not only avoid damage, but also become far harder to predict than any other class with aerial movement potential, and Scout's aerials are designed to accentuate this aerial control. These attacks will allow Scout to reliably juggle foes and cover his jump-ins, with these short yet effective combos being more than enough to make his foes think twice about casually entering his airspace. Scout's neutral air is Stylish Strike, a very fast yet simple attack that will have Scout perform a long-lasting kick in midair, all while striking and holding a pose to show off his aerial superiority in a way that befits his character. This attack, while straightforward in its design, can be used for a variety of purposes in combat, as its very fast recovery speed allows Scout to use it as a landing option, a combo starter, and a combo bridge, as it can potentially combo into itself multiple times at lower percents, with its only real weakness being its lackluster range and a lack of a disjoint. As a result, Scout could potentially get stuffed if he tries jumping in from too far away, so make sure you mind your range. Scout's forward air is High Flying Haymaker, a more powerful aerial option that will have the Scout make use of his bat, with this having the Scout reel back before performing a very wide vertical swing in front of himself, launching foes on contact with some solid force. What this attack lacks in speed, it more than makes up for in both damage and utility, as this attack is both one of Scout's best aerial combo enders and his best edge guarding tool, as its knockback growth is more than strong enough to preemptively end the stock of any foe Scout catches hanging around off stage. This move's strengths only become stronger when mixed with the effects of Criticola, but just make sure you don't land too fast, or you might just end up with a nasty fit of landing lag. Scout's up air is Scatter Flash, another simple yet versatile attack that will have Scout attack above himself with a multi-hitting rising kick, launching foes upwards on hit. This move's multi-hit properties, when mixed with its startup and recovery speed, make it one of Scout's best combo options, and his primary way of teaching his foes to respect his airspace, as it can combo into itself until higher percents against some of the game's heavier fighters. This attack's combo potential only becomes all the more scary when Scout has his Criticola active, as should Scout find a crucial opening, he can potentially force some of the game's midway fighters into kill range with a combo or two, but whatever you do, don't get overzealous. While its speed is fantastic, its subpar range and lack of a disjoint make it fairly unsafe to use as anything other than a combo option, so make sure you already have the advantage before throwing this out. Scout's back air is Boston Backbreaker, a strong reversal option that will have Scout spin around in midair, all while attacking with a powerful roundhouse kick to strike any foe he manages to cross up. With solid speed and damage, this move is an effective spacing and mix-up option that can be used to confirm kills at higher percents, or to give a foe one final push into the blast zone if you manage to catch them off stage. Also, unlike Scout's other aerial kick attacks, this one actually sports a disjoint on his calf and foot during the move's active frames, so it's much more reliable in the neutral, but even then, its range is still only average at best, so mind your positioning against characters with long-range weaponry. Finally, Scout's down air is Man's Marathon, a wacky yet effective aerial option that will have Scout perform a rapid-hitting bicycle kick below himself, his legs spinning and flailing about as he deals rapid damage to his foes. After catching his opponent in a rapid flurry of kicks, Scout would then end this attack with a double foot stomp to send the struck foe down towards whatever lies beneath them. This attack is an excellent landing option thanks to the rapid hitting effects of the bicycle kick, and while it does lead into a spike, it should be known that the spike's power is fairly weak to compensate for the rapid hits at the beginning of the attack. Also, while great when Scout has the opening and lands a hit with the bicycle kick, this move is fairly easy to punish should your opponent predict the attack and block the string, so make sure you mind your positioning. Scout will grab his opponent with one arm, holding them as tightly as he can while using his bat as an intimidation tactic. To pummel, Scout will alternate between headbutting his foes and hitting them with the head of his bat, as why simply take all the headbutts for yourself when you've got a bat to do half the work for you. As for his throws, Scout's options are designed to match his history as a scrapper on the streets of Boston, with these throws feeling aggressive yet unrefined, just like the class using them. From starting combos to setting your foe up for meat shots, these throws can get it done, all while making your foe regret stepping into Scout's grab range.
I am gonna mess you up!
Scout's forward throw is Curb Kissers, a stylish and versatile throw option that will have Scout reel back before throwing himself forward, striking his foe in the face with a high-flying kick in order to send them packing. In terms of design, this throws power and knockback roughly in the middle of his options, with its main purpose being to force his opponents either back into mid-range, or force them off stage for a potential kill confirmed with either his forward or back air. It's also one of the best ways to force opponents into the optimal range for his scattergun at low to mid percents, making it an optimal 1-2 punch that can really rack up damage, especially if paired with the effects of Criticola. Scout's up throw is Hang Time Flex, a charismatic throw option that will have Scout flex his muscles as he holds onto his opponent, showing off for the camera before using his full strength to spin his foe around and toss them up into the air. While he might be proud of his physique, this throw's knockback is notably the weakest of his options, and while that might seem like a comedic deal breaker, it more than makes up for its lack of knockback, with it being one of Scout's best combo starters, as he can follow up with a series of up airs to start racking up some serious damage. On top of this, the thrown opponent will also knock any other would-be foes out of the way on hit, giving you a clear path to combo damage in multiplayer matches. Scout's back throw is Flip and Dip, another charismatic throw option that will have Scout leap clean over his opponent's head, all before sending them flying with a double foot drop kick to the back of their head. In terms of stats, this throw sports both the highest damage and knockback of Scout's throws, with this being the closest thing that the loudmouth Merc has to a kill throw. Well, at least without the effect of Criticola, that is. While that's the case, however, you're more than likely going to be using this option to force foes out of position and potentially escape the corner, though chances are high you're not going to get stuck in a corner unless done deliberately. Finally, a less charismatic and more brutal throw option that will have Scout smash his opponent in the stomach with his bat, causing them to stagger before he leaps up and beats them into the floor with an overhead swing. This combination of attacks is designed to reference the way that Scout dispatches the Heavy in his Meet the Team video, and thanks to its average at best damage and knockback growth, Scout's player can use this as a combo starter at low to mid percents against the majority of the cast. At higher percents, however, it instead becomes a 50-50 option that could potentially lead to a kill confirm if Scout's opponent fails to DI properly. And given Scout's speed, it might prove to be an insurmountable challenge for some fighters. It's now time for us to start talking about Scout specials. And this is where the Boston Loudmouth will be making use of some real firepower. As while his guns might not be large, they certainly pack a punch. And in turn, have the potential to make Scout a serious threat at mid-range. Just make sure you don't overdo it, however, as going deep for a meat shot might not be worth the risk, should you end up not being able to land your shots. Starting with his neutral special, Scout will be making use of his trademark weapon from Team Fortress 2 to blast away his competition and add on to his already scary offense with quick mid-range burst damage. From a tech chasing option, to a combo tool, to a kill confirm at higher percents. This highly versatile boomstick can do it all and more, and if you're staring down the barrel, you've already fallen prey to one of TF2's strongest primaries, the Scattergun. With this, Scout will pull out his iconic lever action blaster once the player presses the B button, all before unleashing a mid-range blast of shrapnel in front of himself to damage any opponent in his path. At this point, Scout's player can continue to press the B button to continuously fire the Scattergun in front of themselves. And as an added bonus, Scout will not only be able to freely move back and forth while firing, but he's also capable of jumping, which can allow Scout to continuously pressure his foes while avoiding incoming damage. This design is very similar to the way that Scout plays as a class in TF2, where one of Scout's main forms of combat is using his mobility to jump and dance around incoming shots while dealing small but sizable chunks of damage. And if he manages to flank around and strike his enemies from behind, he's more than fast enough to take out a valuable member of the enemy team, then make his escape. And to help focus on this aspect of Scout, and fine-tune the weapon to help it fit better in a fighting game setting, the Scattergun will sport two different hitboxes that are based on proximity. If Scout manages to close the distance and hit his foes with a close-range blast, the Scattergun's damage will not only be at its highest, but the concussive force of the blast will launch the foe hit with some decent force. All while the high priority of the pellets allows Scout to stuff close-range buttons and potentially even close out stocks. The power and knockback of these shots will gradually reduce the further away Scout is from his opponent when he fires, and if the opponent is past the mid-range point of the blast, they'll take no knockback whatsoever, only damage. As a result, Scout can pester foes from a variety of ranges, but he'll still need to get reasonably close to not only deal more damage, but actually interrupt range pressure from his foes, so there's always an incentive to close the gap. Also, it should be noted that Scout will be locked into aiming straight ahead while firing, as moving and jumping will lock his direction until the player stops firing. And after the player fires a total of 6 shots, they will need to reload the weapon before they can fire it again. Fortunately, the player will be able to reload at any point by inputting shield and special, allowing them to stay fully stocked and ready for a scrim at a moment's notice. There's also no limit to the amount of ammo that Scout has, so as long as you keep his Scattergun loaded, you'll be able to keep firing and dealing damage. Scout is known for being just as annoying as he is effective in a firefight, so don't be afraid to piss off your foes while using one of your many taunt lines.
Hit the bricks, pal, you're done.
Moving on to his side special, Scout will take a step away from his lever action shotgun and instead make use of a multi-use physical projectile that harkens back to his love of baseball, with this allowing the loudmouth merc to cripple his opponent's mobility and make attempts to flee next to impossible. Get caught by this, and your chances of reaching home are next to none. Sandman Smasher. With this, Scout will be making use of his Sandman Bat, an item that also released during the Scout update in 2010, and a secondary option for Scout that was once one of the game's most broken items. As while equipping this bat would reduce Scout's max health, it would allow the player to make use of a secondary fire option, with this having Scout launch out a baseball with a moderate amount of force. And if an opponent got struck by this ball, they'd be stunned and unable to move for a set period of time. This, understandably, got nerfed multiple times over TF2's lifespan, with notable changes including the ability to move while stunned and reducing the overall stun time, but the last change to the weapon would completely alter its purpose in combat, removing the stun altogether in exchange for slowing the opponent on hit, ultimately killing the weapon's viability in its home franchise. But while lackluster in TF2, it has the potential to be a danger here in Smash. Speaking of which, using this move will have Scout pull out both his Sandman and a baseball, all before tossing it into the air and sending it flying with a resounding crack. This ball works as a physical projectile, with it traveling a set distance away from Scout once launched, and should the ball make contact with an opponent, it will deal minimal damage, but more importantly, it will inflict the struck foe with a debuff. This debuff will reduce the foe's overall movement speed by 20% for a total of 5 seconds, with this accounting for both grounded dash and airspeed. And thanks to this, Scout will have a much easier time chasing foes down and either starting combos or closing out stocks. And this aspect only gets more terrifying when Scout is utilizing the crit cola at the same time. Although a couple of characters might be able to bypass this effect, given how fast they are in general. Of course, simply being able to cut down the speed of your foes is a fairly strong tool for a character of any playstyle to have, let alone one like Scout, and as a result, it comes with a couple of restrictions to keep it in check, as after the ball makes contact with an opponent and inflicts its debuff, it will enter a 10-second cooldown state. This cooldown makes timing and placement all the more important when making use of the Sandman, all while encouraging Scout's player to practice their swing before stepping up to the plate. But much like TF2, there is a way that the player can lower this timer and maximize the uptime of their ball. You see, throwing on a ball in TF2 would have the projectile stay active on the field, even if the Scout manages to land a hit. And as a result, Scout is capable of hitting his opponent with the ball, then immediately picking the ball back up, which allows him to immediately use it again. And this aspect will also work here in Smash, although to a different extent. After landing a hit with the Sandman, the ball will remain on stage for a total of 3 seconds, and if Scout manages to pick the ball back up before it disappears, the cooldown of the ball will be cut down by 75%, which means it will only take 2.5 seconds for the ball to become usable again. This can be scary for some of the slower characters in the game, but it should be noted that Scout can be kept away from his ball by incoming enemy attacks, so there is counterplay to it. On top of that, opponents with reflectors will be able to inflict the Scout with his own debuff should they send his ball back at him, so make sure you time your swings against some fighters. Moving on to his recovery special, Scout will make use of a highly versatile mobility option that will allow the speedy scrapper to reach heights he couldn't reach on his own, all while accentuating his aerial control in a fun and creative way. With pep in your step, your foes will never see you coming, although that might be because nobody looks up in TF2. Hype jump. With this, Scout will pull out a can of unidentifiable bonk soda, and after taking a moment to strike a dynamic pose to the camera, he'll crush the can in his hand, causing a wave of purple energy to surge through his body as he rises into the air. At this point, Scout will be able to immediately follow up this animation with a series of extra jumps, his legs cloaked in purple light, much like they are when under the effects of the Soda Popper's hype system. And in total, Scout can perform up to 4 extra jumps, granting the Merc a total of 6 jumps. Scout will also strike a variety of stylish and over-the-top poses with each jump he performs, with the poses being completely random but always in character for the loudmouth Merc. During this state, Scout will be able to freely attack and avoid damage, and as an added bonus, allowing him to attack with moves like an advancing back air or a retreating forward air, but it should be noted that if Scout performs an attack during a hype jump, it will immediately end the recovery. He won't go into a helpless state, but it can still result in him plummeting to his death if his player isn't careful. Lastly, if Scout takes damage during Hype Jump, he will be able to reactivate the recovery, but unlike most recoveries in the game, this reset will only happen once, meaning that Scout will need to land in order to activate Hype Jump again. Finally, for his down special, Scout will make use of the aforementioned Criticola, with this self-buff serving as Scout's character mechanic and one of the most integral parts of his game plan as a whole. As previously mentioned, downing this can of cola comes with a manliness guarantee, as what's more manly than buffing your own damage? It's not without its risks, however, as Scout's sway will be brought down to a harrowing 68 during the buff's active timer. It's a tool based around high risk and high reward, as Scout has the potential to completely wipe away stocks if he has the upper hand, but completely squander any lead he had if he gets caught out of position. But while that's the case, that's also a nice comparison to the Scout as a whole in TF2. If you have the right positioning and the advantage in combat, you're next to unstoppable. But if Scout gets caught out of position or fails to make his shots count, there's few classes in the game that can be punished as hard as he can. As a result, it's best to stick with stock unless you're confident in your abilities. But when you're ready to take the plunge, don't be afraid to go for broke. Next is the final smash, and for this, Scout will bring together all of his best aspects to create an attack that will leave his opponents begging for mercy. While he might not be afraid to run his mouth, he's also not one to run from a potential fight, and when you add in a bit of liquid courage, there's nothing your opponent will be able to do to stop the oncoming beating. This is Bonk Atomic Beatdown. When the final smash starts, Scout will pull out a can of his favorite beverage, Bonk Atomic Punch, all before quickly downing the can and crushing it in his hand. The last of the items to be introduced during the Scout update, this lovely concoction of water, radiation, and sugar to become fully invulnerable for a total of 8 seconds. Although this does come at the cost of not being able to use any of his weapons. It's a tool that's mainly used to retrieve from a potentially bad situation, but here in Smash, it'll be the thing that gives the Scout the power to completely stomp his foes into the dust. With the atomic punch now in his system, Scout will rush forward while performing a wide horizontal bat swing, and should any opponent be caught in the path of his attack, they'll be knocked to the floor and locked into a cinematic final smash. At this point, the camera will show the opponent slowly recovering off the ground, all while the Scout stands over them, taunting them as his body radiates waves of, well, radiation. In a fit of anger, the opponent will attempt to punch or kick the Scout, with the attack performed varying between characters. But regardless of the attack, the outcome is all the same, as their move will seem to do nothing to the Scout in his atomized state. Scout will then proceed to laugh at his opponent before cracking them in the head with his baseball bat, and in a flash, he'll proceed to follow up his swing with a series of blindly fast attacks, not unlike that of a raging demon. As a matter of fact, Scout will be moving so fast that he'll even have the time to perform various taunts, such as laughing at his foes or even eating a piece of chicken. And to end the final smash, the Scout will send his foes flying with one final home run swing, taunting them all the while as they're sent pining for the blast zone. In terms of design, this final smash will only be able to hit a single opponent at a time, and while it might be cinematic, it will not instantly kill the caught opponent at 100% damage. No, instead, Scout will perform a different end taunt, depending on whether or not the final smash results in a lost stock, so there's still a nice payoff if the move lands at an opportune time. For his victory theme, Scout will be making use of the same theme that I've used for the other mercenaries that I've covered in the past, with this being the ending riffs of the main theme of Team Fortress 2. It's short, it's sweet, and it's something that perfectly fits every merc in the game. And whenever I decide to cover another TF2 merc in the future, this will also be the theme they have as well. Victory animation number 1 will have Scout kick his baseball bat off the floor, all before catching it and spinning it around in his hands, taunting his foes all the while before he rests the bat on his shoulder, striking a pose to the camera in his own show-offy fashion. As an added bonus, Scout will occasionally look over and point at the portraits of the fighters he's defeated, all while laying out a silent laugh as a means of mocking them further. Victory animation number 2 will have the Scout run in from off-screen, a blurry trail following behind him as he comes to a sliding halt. As the camera focuses on him, it'll be shown that Scout is under the effects of Bonk Atomic Punch, and after taunting his opponents one final time, he'll pull out his can of Atomic Punch and tank another drink from it as his name flashes on screen. After this, Scout will proceed to crush the can and toss it over his shoulder, all before striking a pose that he'll hold until the player cycles back to the character select screen. Finally, victory animation number 3 will show Scout carrying an intelligence briefcase, all before dropping it to the floor and using it as a makeshift stool. At this point, Scout will take a seat as he talks about how easy that fight was, and he'll proceed to continue resting until the player cycles back to the character select screen. As a character who is known for running his mouth and bad-mouthing his opposition, picking and choosing taunts for the Scout is a difficult affair, namely because there's not only so many to pick from, but they're all really great choices. While the other mercenaries I've covered in the past have stuck to just using the default taunts for each loadout slot, I don't feel I'd be doing the Scout justice if I did the same thing for him, and as a result, I'm going to be doing something a bit different this time around. For the first time in Smash history, Scout will not simply have 3 taunts, but instead 3 different sets of taunts per directional input, and with a total of 3 taunts per set, the Scout will sport a grand total of 9 different taunts. These taunts will cycle at random, but regardless of which option you get, you're always guaranteed to raise your opponent's cortisol levels. Starting with the first set of taunts, taunt number 1 is the Scout's basic primary weapon taunt from TF2, with this having the score play up the horsepower of his scattergun, slapping his thighs if he's riding a horse. On top of that, the Scout will sport one of 3 different voice lines as the animation plays out.
That's what I'm talking about!
Taunt number 2 will show the Scout perform the Bat in 1,000 taunt, with this having the Scout rapidly spin his bat before casually flipping it on one finger. Introduced into the game during the Love and War update in 2014, this fan-favorite taunt can be cancelled early by attacking or holding up your shield. Finally, taunt number 3 will have the Scout perform the Schadenfreude taunt, with this having the Scout point with both of his hands and laugh hysterically at his foe, all before spinning in a circle and slapping his knee. While this isn't all-class taunt in TF2, it's a taunt that's most often associated with the Scout, and given his personality and sharp tongue, it's not hard to understand why. Moving on to the second set of taunts, taunt number 1 is the Scout's basic secondary taunt from TF2, with this having Scout jog in place and check his pulse, all while checking an imaginary watch on his wrist. While this can also be performed with a short stop, it's a taunt that's still mostly associated with Scout's secondaries. And much like his primary taunt, he'll follow up this animation with one of 3 voice lines.
I'm running circles around you.
Taunt number 2 will have the Scout perform the Killer's signature taunt, with this having the Scout pull out a picture of himself before signing it, all before he throws it forward and strikes a pose. One of the more recent taunts added to the game, it feels perfectly in character for the Scout to do, and while it's more than likely not a reference, it is very similar to a move that Dan Hibiki can perform in the Versus series. Finally, taunt number 3 will have the Scout perform the Boston Breakdance taunt, with this having the Scout perform a series of breakdance moves before flipping back onto his feet. Introduced into the game in 2015, this taunt shows off Scout's flexibility and his love for showing off to the camera, and after flipping onto his feet, he'll say one of a few voice lines.
Yeah, that just happened.
Finally, there's the last set of taunts, and for these, taunt number 1 is Scout's basic melee taunt from TF2, with this having the Scout spread his arms and show off for the camera, all before pointing down towards the floor. Like his other basic taunts, this taunt will feature a set of 3 potential voice lines after it concludes, but as an added bonus, Scout will always finish each line with his iconic catchphrase, bonk. It's just not Scout without at least one bonk voice line in his repertoire.
Who wants some of this? Bonk.
Taunt number 2 will have the Scout perform the Runner's Rhythm taunt, with this having the Scout pull out a pair of bongo drums and play a quick little tune, all before popping them back into his bag. Introduced into the game during the Smithson's 2017 update, this taunt is normally a looping taunt that can be done indefinitely, but here in Smash, it will be a quick little animation before Scout returns to his idle pose. Finally, taunt number 3 will have the Scout perform the Deep Fried Desire taunt, with this having Scout pull out a bucket of chicken and grab one of its pieces, all before taking a bite. Another taunt introduced into the game during the Love and War update, this is yet another fan favorite taunt, with it even being featured in the expiration date short that came along with the update itself. It will also come with a series of exclusive voice lines, which is a nice touch.
Got a bucket of chicken. Let's do this.
For his colors, the Scout will be following the same design philosophy that I've had for the other mercenaries that I've covered in the past, as not only will he be showing off both team colors, but also a multitude of cosmetics that the players can obtain for the Scout in Team Fortress 2. And compared to the other mercs I've covered, Scout probably has the biggest list of options to pick from. Color number 1 will be Scout's basic appearance when he's on the red team, featuring his short sleeve shirt, gray pants, and baseball cap. Color number 2 will be Scout in his basic appearance on the blue team, with the only major difference between them being the color of Scout's shirt, which is now a muted sky blue. It's still more than impactful enough to easily tell the player which team he's on, which is good, as there are fewer things in TF2 that are more important than team recognition. Color number 3 will have the red Scout don the Batter's helmet, the very first hat Scout received during the Sniper vs. Spy update. While this hat normally has 3 different styles for the player to choose from in TF2, he will only be featuring the no hat version here in Smash. Color number 4 will have the blue Scout don the Yield Baker Boy, one of the hats that Scout received during the Classless update and arguably the true second hat that Scout has ever received, as the bonk helmet is a continuation of the Batter's helmet. This hat was originally awarded in genuine quality to any player who purchased the Blue Scout action figure, so it's only fitting that the Blue Scout is the one that gets to wear it. Color number 5 will not only feature a hat, but also make use of one of Scout's many shirt cosmetics, with this color having the Scout don both the Troublemaker's Tousle Cap and the Fast Learner. An infamous hat and shirt combo in TF2, these 2 items were added during the first community contribution update and the February 22nd, 2012 patch respectively, and while these cosmetics are mostly seen in lime green, rest assured that that disgusting blemish on TF2's visual design will not be featured here in Smash. Color number 6 will have the Blue Scout don both the Frickin' Sweet Ninja Hood and the Sally Shinobi, 2 items introduced into the game during the Love and War update. This fan favorite cosmetic set will give the Scout the appearance of a ninja, and given his general speed and agility, I think he fits the outfit quite well. Color number 7 will have the red Scout don both the Fortunate Son and the Flakjack, a pair of war-themed cosmetics introduced into the game during the August 22nd patch of 2015. While a bit different when compared to a lot of his other cosmetics, it's not like Scout has never been a part of war. Be it Powerhouse, Hydro, or Two Fort, war never changes. Finally, color number 8 will change Scout's appearance completely, with this having him take on the look of a Scout bot from Man vs. Machine mode. This color will also alter Scout's voice, with his voice being identical to the way that Scout bots sound in MVM. And if being taunted by a loudmouth Bostonian wasn't bad enough, being badmouthed by a Bostonian robot has got to hurt even more. As this is the 4th time I've covered a TF2 character, and the 5th time I've covered a character from Valve in general, it's a bit difficult for me to find the words that I need to describe my thoughts on topics like this, as I feel I've already said what I need to say many times over. But for the sake of rounding out this video, I feel I should reiterate that TF2 truly is one of my favorite games of all time. While my thoughts on Valve as a company have only continued to deteriorate over the years, my love for TF2 and its characters is something I don't think will ever die. And ever since Valve started fighting back against bots, it's not something that I need to enjoy from a distance anymore. On top of that, I also still feel that Valve as a company truly does belong in a celebration of video games like Smash Brothers, even if I wish they showed more love and respect to their IPs. And while I do feel that Half-Life should get in first, I will not deny that TF2's art style meshes the best with the visual design of Smash Brothers. And on top of that, I can also now understand why the Scout has become one of the popular frontrunners for his franchise in speculation circles. While he's not my favorite mercenary, I can definitely understand why he's a fan favorite in TF2, as on top of his highly satisfying gameplay loop, the personality given to this character by Nathan Vetterline is second only to that of Rick May's Soldier to me. Despite this, however, I do still feel that Heavy is the most likely of the mercenaries to actually get into Smash, simply thanks to the fact that he's the most iconic and the game's arguable mascot. But even then, I would gladly accept and play the hell out of Scout if he ever got into the game, even if his chances are very low. Regardless, I'll continue to support the multitude of Valve All-Stars that could potentially get into Smash. And I can also assure you that Scout will not be the last mercenary I ever cover. But for now, I'm simply going to enjoy the concept as just that, a concept. Oh, and Valve, while I'm very appreciative of the fact that you've started to combat bots and cheaters in your games, please give some love to Half-Life. Alex was a huge success and shouldn't be back to rotting at the bottom of the ocean. So please, at least pretend you actually care about the products that got you where you are. Alright? Thanks. And with that, this challenger concept is complete. If you like what you saw and want to see more, be sure to like and subscribe. And to keep up to date on what's coming next, a link in the description will take you to my Discord, where you'll not only be kept up to date on upcoming content before any other platform, but also be able to partake in events like Clear for Battle, where you can have your movesets reviewed once per month. Also, if you'd like to help support these videos, you can become a member of my channel or join my Patreon, where you'll get access to a bunch of assets before they become available to the public. Anything I receive goes straight back into making these videos better, so all support is highly appreciated. That's all from me for now, so until the next time I see you, I've been Felicia Fan, and I hope that you have a good one.